Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another show. This is the Savi Sikh show. I'm your host, Dr. Savi, and this week we've got another exciting show for you. We are going to be talking about a particular subject that's close to, I believe, every Sikh's heart, which is seva. And that seva is also about charity, and specifically about why is it that Sikhs do a lot of charity. It's an interesting question. I'm assuming here that lots of Sikhs do charity because all the people that I know are involved in something or another. They're involved in the Lions Club, they do Rotary stuff, they do things for Khalsa Aid, and we're very honoured today to have some representatives from Khalsa Aid to talk about their projects, and more explicitly we're talking about Sikhi and charity. So it's not necessarily just about Khalsa Aid, it's also about a lot of the other charities as well. There's a wonderful group called SWAT, they do a lot of work on the homeless in the UK. There's also a group called Sikh Aid. There's, like I said, there's so many groups doing so much fantastic stuff. But there's something in the heart of Sikhi that I think makes us want to do selfless service. Now, let's kind of look at that term, selfless service, for a second. What does it actually mean? Does it mean that when you do something, you expect something in return? I don't think so. I think it's when you give selflessly, that's it, it's from your heart. You don't give a present and hope that you're going to get something back and then you're going to compare the worse. That's not what it is. To a certain extent, if you actually get that good feeling, you are getting something back. But the more you give, the better it is. And I was actually looking at a very good website the other day. I strongly recommend you go and have a look at it, which is called sikhiwiki.org. And it said, it's very important for Sikhs to do charity work. Wand ka shukr is one of the three main pillars of the teaching of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, the founder of the Sikh faith. The other two pillars are known as Naam Japo and Kirat Karni. The term Wand ka shukr means share one's wealth with others in the community and to give charity to distribute. For example, langar is one way of actually sharing everyone on the same level. It's there to help the community, it's there to help people, and a Sikh is expected to contribute 10% of their wealth, it's called dasvant, to needy people of the world for a worthy cause. And we see disasters, we see all kinds of things happening, and recently we've seen the really terrible thing happened with regards to a cruise ship. Whatever we can do in life, we should be able to help people. I'm not here to preach, but I am here to talk about a number of issues. So the first one really is looking at charity and Sikhi, finding time to help people, a connection with youth. And I'll give you a quick story before we get into the discussion and we start talking to everyone else who's kindly come onto the program today. I met with somebody in the US a few years ago. I might have told you the story before. She actually worked for the Peace Corps, which I think was set up by President Kennedy. And what they do is encourage kids to go out, a bit like the Voluntary Services Organisation in the UK, to go out to a country. And she went to Kenya, and she's from quite a rich background, Sikh girl. And she said, wasn't it terrible that she could see that people were looking at her shoes? They thought it was amazing that she had a pair of shoes. The things that we take for granted, the fact that we get given so much information, yet do we really do enough to help people out there? But as Sikhs, we should do that. In my view, we should do that. Like I said, I'm not preaching, and we have perfect examples of people who have been doing work out there. So I'll introduce them first, and then I'll actually get to go with the questions as well. So first of all, we have Jaswinta. Fantastic to meet you. Thank you for coming on the program. And we've also got Ravi Singh from Khalsa Aid, who's the founder of Khalsa Aid all those years ago, I think 12 years ago. You've been on the program before.
This April will be 13 years, so yeah, as the bid suggests, it's getting on a bit.
2012 now. And then I've also got a wonderful Baljit Singh, who works for a government organisation. And how do you find the time to do this is really one question I want to ask you. So let's go straight to Ravi Singh first, and tell us a little bit more about this Wand ka shukr. I mean, you know, you were inspired, we've had this conversation before, you were inspired ages ago to start up the charity. It was 1999, but what do you understand from that term, Wand ka shukr?
I think, first of all, there's a lot of issues in the community. We will listen to the ardas at the end when somebody bought a Mercedes or a new house or something to do ardas for, but most of the ardas we use it as a ritual. When we say like, you know, we don't look after their families. When we say Sarvat Tapada, we don't really look beyond our own house. And Wand ke shukr means a lot more than just having langar in Gurdwara. which serves 5-star langar in a way in the UK and the West, but 2 hours flight from here, they haven't got the basics. So in 1999 there was a war in Kosovo spilling into Albania, and a lot of refugees coming from Kosovo across the borders. So we were celebrating 300 years of the Khalsa, and I thought, hang on, what's the point of all this food on the streets here when we're seeing images day and night of people fighting over a loaf of bread? And that image is still in my mind. We actually went to the place where they were fighting for that loaf of bread on the border of Kosovo, Albania. And so we put it into practice. I think Khalsa is probably the first cross-border humanitarian organization, Sikh-based. And from then, we never looked back. I think we need to question who we are. And 1K Shakana is a very wide meaning. And if you believe in the Khalsa, it doesn't matter, which Jathaban you belong to. You can't have your neighbor starving and you having a big tid sort of thing. Sorry to say the term. But, and walk away, look the other way. It's just walking away, somebody basically getting murdered, the same thing. If you leave someone starving. So we have generosity, we have gurdwaras, we have the money, but somehow, since 47, we're not really, I think because there's also external attacks on Sikhi as well, we want to become they want us to become more ritualistic, more based away from Sikhi.
Who's they?
The government, who might have sponsored programs, the RSS, the BJP, they have high influences. No matter who controls the Indian government, there is still that, I think the book by Advani, who said in his book in 1984, he went to Indira Gandhi, and he's BJP, saying they should attack the Harmandir Sahib. And now he was at Harmandir Sahib a few months ago getting almost a saropa from the SGPC. So basically, the enemy within and externally would like us to be ritualistic. Do rituals, do this, do that, do your part, a counterpart, but don't look at the wider picture. Just stick into just little bits and pieces, that stationary. And if you don't move, if you stay in one place, you will deteriorate. It's always changing. The universe is about change. We have to adapt where we are. We're in the UK. So we should be able to send money to a village that we come from. If each one of us look after our own village, 1K Shakana, that's a great meaning. You'll bring Sikhi back, you'll bring love back, understanding, warmth. So I think we need to be aware we're not into rituals.
I think it's just
Sikhi is active. Tiyar bar tiyar, 1K Shakana, Sarvata Pala, Nanak Nam Chardi Kala. Chardi Kala is a great meaning. But we don't even talk about it to children. When you ask people, what's Chardi Kala? Oh, I heard it in the Ardas. It's amazing. Chardi Kala means ever-rising spirits. No end. Just continues. But yet again, we're lost in that little, who dresses the best.
But do you think that part of the reason why, I think I mentioned this before as well, is that the reason why it's difficult for people to do anything about charity or do any of that kind of, everyone should be blessed, sabratapala, is because we're so tied up into a kind of survivalist mentality that we find difficulty in actually trying to earn enough money, and then the phrase charity begins at home, right? But we can't even get to that stage because some people can't eat, some people don't have enough, they can't make money, can't make ends themselves, right? Or maybe what it is that because we live in such a materialistic world, there's never, you've got a TV, now you need an iPod. Now you've got an iPod, you need something else. It's kind of like the next target, one little flower, is got, and then the next flower starts to never-ending sense of materialism, whereas we don't take time to sit back and go, actually, just like in that example that I gave earlier on, where you see the girl going from America to Kenya, and she sees that these people here are fascinated by her shoes, because they don't have a decent pair of shoes, or they just spend a lot of their time barefooted. I mean, I'll just, bring in Jaswinder. Tell us about some of the work you've done in Kenya. I mean, you've done it through Khalsa Aid, obviously, but how did you feel when you went out to Kenya? What was it like for you?
Well, as quite a few people know, I was from Kenya. I am from Kenya. My family's, part of my family is still there. And when the problems in the Horn of Africa arose regarding the refugee crisis, people pouring in from Somalia, the rains failing, the food, not sufficient enough for the people and all that. So we, as a Khalsa, decided that we want to be part of the group helping out there, right? And I was tasked to go over there and went over there. And as usual, wherever we have Sikh communities worldwide, I mean, even when we go to other places in order to do the disasters, recover the disasters. I mean, this was part of the disaster, but fortunately we have a very, very small community in Kenya. And we went in there, we got in touch with the local Sikh community, and he said, look, we want to do, because at the end of the day, it's a Sikh issue of how we help and Sarbat da Pala. And Manas ki jaat sab ek hi pehchan wo hai. So it doesn't matter what color the people are or what clothes they are wearing, what they are, but at the end of the day, they're human beings, and it's a humanitarian problem. We were fortunate enough, the Sikhs of Kenya, very small in number, but they stood shoulder to shoulder with us. We organized. And I think one of your questions, which we're going to lead later on, is with the NGOs, but as you're aware, once a refugee status has been declared, that the government basically surrenders that piece of land to the United Nations. So UNHCR takes over that, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. And then they are the people who run that area. Right. Obviously, it's within the country and all that. I mean, right. Like in my case, or most of the NGOs we were working on there, we had to actually get a almost like a visa from within the country to go and visit that place. Right. And what we found out there was that, which is a well publicized fact, that it's the biggest refugee camp in the world. About 380,000 people at that time. It's still growing, but at a slow rate now. And once the refugee status was declared by the United Nations, help started pouring in. Every country basically sent in something or the other. I was talking to the people in Nairobi who was running the program, and this is about 250 miles from Nairobi. And the guys who are doing the logistics in their headquarters, United Nations headquarters, the HCR place there, and every about half an hour to 40 minutes, a plane was landing full of supplies. We have local community who were over there, also local Sikh community who were there, who were installing water pumps, water tanks over there, and each of these big charities you hear of, Oxfam, Red Cross, etc., they all had their little piece there with their own water tank, everything sorted out. And we talked to Red Cross as well, so where we can liaise with that. And after about 2 weeks going to and fro, talking to all the peoples actually going on, unfortunately, we were, because as I said, United Nations takes over that, we were booked on 2 flights, and there were only 2 flights a week, Mondays and Wednesdays, and both times we being at the bottom of the food chain were taken off the plane because in one case the Japanese delegation came over there, so it's a small plane, 35 people only, and on the other. But talking to the UNHCR, talking to the Red Cross, we found out that there was surplus food in that particular area.
Right.
Now the issue then was, because it's a refugee status declared area, right? All that food which comes in goes only to the refugees who are registered and they have got their ID. So they get the food. The local community, the host community, who are not refugees, they become basically they are the people who are suffering the effects of the famine, because they do not get any help from there. So it's the responsibility of the host government to feed their own people. Right. So we looked at that, and believe me or not, when we said there was surplus food, there was surplus food. But got out of the camp, there was nothing there for the host community. So we decided, Punjabi rajanu rajan wali gall hai. So we said let's go where we are needed. So in conjunction with the local the Kenya government, I mean the local areas and all that, and Red Cross helped us in identifying that, because they are the people. The Kenya Red Cross was holding a large database exactly where the food was needed and all that, and we identified about 5 places, and 3 of them they had already received food from other sources in the last 2 weeks prior to our date we was going there.
Right. Yeah.
So with the local community and Khalsa, we raised over 100 metric tons of food.
Wow.
Right, and there were like 4 big 40-foot trucks loaded with that.
Amazing.
There was local hauliers down there, Sikh hauliers by the name of Sardaar Singh, multiple hauliers. I mean, and these guys, we talked to them and said, we want to deliver this food. What are you going to do?
So tell me, I mean, very interesting talking about all the things that you did out there.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. Appreciate it. What is it you think about Sikhs inside that makes them think, let's do something for somebody, let's help somebody? That's a bit of a difficult question, but do you think there's like a passion inside a Sikh that says we really need to help people out?
I mean, that passion, as Ravi probably has explained this so many times, I mean, as grew up because at the beginning we were with Ravi from the beginning, right? And the issues which we saw, which we still see, right? Gurdwara, you go, I mean, there's lots of food being wasted, this, that, and the other, right? Nothing against that, because people have got to celebrate their days, etc., and everything, feed, right? We said, let's go beyond that. There were 2 ideas. Ravi came up with this idea of Khalsa, as that my idea was very similar to the one you said, Peace Corps.
Yeah.
Because that came in, again, as I said, because my connection with Kenya is just a few years before that, there was a bombing of the American embassies.
Yes, there was, yeah.
Right? And the Sikhs there, other communities help a little bit, but Sikhs, I mean, in their little small trucks, taking foods and all there, right? But we had all the passion. They went and fed the people there, people surrounding injured, the police, sorting out the army, etc. Everyone, however they can help, they helped with that, they helped with the blankets, they helped with the whatever they could. But one thing which we did not have, and believe me or not, I mean, Kenya, an independent nation, did not have that expertise. The Israelis had to come in with there to help them to help with searching for the bodies in the rubble, right? Clearing up the rubble and all that. And my idea of that, that was just before Ravinder, and we had a meeting with some of the people and all that. So we should have a group of like a Sikh Corps, where we said we should have a group of doctors, group of engineers and all that, and wherever the disaster strikes, we should send that in here.
It's a nice idea.
Right? That's a very nice idea, but unfortunately we are relying on too much of specialist expertise.
Right.
Right. If, for example, if we need to send doctors, we need a real group of doctors on there, or engineers, or whatever. Whereas with the Khalsa Aid, what we do, it's easier to manage and all that. It's all we need is passion and commitment.
I appreciate it. Yeah, that's very good. Let me move the topic on to Baljeet here. Now, all this stuff, all this activity takes time, right? So you've got a busy job during the day. And it's to inspire a lot of people that are out there who want to do stuff for charity, who want to get involved, or maybe just feel that they want to contribute. Sometimes not everybody can get out and about and find spare time to do work. But how do you find the spare time? How do you prioritize your day so you think, okay, I've worked hard, I've maybe spent 9 hours in the workplace. How am I going to find time to come back home and go to an office and start organising the files and the logistics and the plane tickets and all kinds of other things that you need to do, because you do a lot of work operationally, don't you?
Yes, I think with anything, any extracurricular activity, you have to make time. Those who go to the gym, they know that they have to fit that around their work. I know people who are much more committed than I am in their things, and they go to the gym. They'll train, wake up 5 o'clock in the morning, go to the gym before they go to work. So it's more of a case of having to make time. But I think, like you said, that in the heart of every Sikh, it's that passion of seva. I think it's not just Sikh. I think if everyone was just to take a second and just have some peace and quiet, and you'll hear that inner voice. If you go past someone who's starving or hungry, and if you're not rushing to go to some meeting or not rushing to meet some friends or something, I think if you stopped and actually think, what is your heart saying to you right now, you'd say to yourself, I should feed this guy.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point, actually, that Biljit's making, that it isn't necessarily an exclusive right that, a Sikh has that passion inside them. There are, across the board in all the religions, and whether it be Jewish or Muslim or Hindu, there are people there that have got that real sense of they want to do something, they want to help. And even if you look at people like the Rotary Club, even though I'm involved in doing some bike ride activity for Saka from Birmingham to London, there are people from all different communities that come together to try and do something good. And one of the things that I've always felt, and I know what your reaction is to this, is that if we find a whole bunch of people that want to do good for charity, then they forget about the differences between them, and they just focus on that central goal to fix the problem or to fix the issue. What do you think? Do you agree with that? I mean, when you're out there and you see all the different people from different groups, I mean, they're not talking about, oh, you got this or you got that, or you wear this or you wear that. They're just trying to focus on fixing the issue. They're trying to, get the people out of the rubble. They're trying to feed the people, aren't they?
I think there's, like in Haiti, we had a camp where we invited people from all over the world, Germans, Japanese, American, Canadians, and they had one mission, that is to help Haiti. And we all shared information, we shared food, we shared accommodation. And I think what we confuse it with, like, if we had everyday sort of situation, well, like Biljit said, if we're rushed around with our jobs and meetings, etc., then it becomes a little bit more pressurized as well. You've got to put the bread on the table as well. But when you're in disaster areas, it's only one aim. And it's interesting that you said, like, it's only not just the Sikhs that think of this situation. But I think, maybe I'm wrong, maybe some well-read person is going to correct me. It's only the Sikh prayer that ends with Sarbat Tapala, which is interesting.
It's a fantastic thing when you think about all our gurus had that incredible foresight that they knew, I mean, right from Guru Nanak, and the light carried on, that they knew that this was one of the most important things to do, was to connect with the community and to connect with the world and do something good to help other people.
Definitely.
I mean, the Sarvat Tapala thing is,
unique,
I think it's underrated. Like I said before, I don't know what you think, but I think a lot of people just stand for the prayer and remember who got the murk at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the main important part of it, yeah.
So what's generally the youngsters, I mean, Peace Corps, Khalsa Aid, anybody, we should have done this a long time ago.
One difference part of Sikhi is that being a religion that can trace its, the Guru Granth Sahib Ji Maharaj was written by the Gurus and stuff, and we can trace that lineage back to the Guru Sahibs, and we've got that direct link to the Word of God. Whereas other religions, even though that charity and seva is an important part of many religions, because obviously some of their scriptures weren't written by their prophets, by their messiahs, some of the central core meanings and the principles might have been lost in time to other political issues. Well, I mean, if you take Islam and stuff, I mean, a lot of their religion, their politics and their laws is governed by the Hadith, which are writings about the religion, which are written hundreds of years after the.
But you got to hand it to the Muslims. Are interesting because when they do have their Ramadan, they do actually collect money. If you look at all the Ramadan that they do, which is the reason why they do the fast and things, they have that kind of background behind why they're doing it.
It's true,
they're trying to empathise with it. I mean, Sikhs don't do fasting. We don't have any of that ritual stuff. We don't do any of that. But
funny you mentioned that because a really good friend of mine, Asim, he used to have a lot of trouble with fasting. And he used to say to me, because he goes, how can I live like a prince all year round and fast on one day? He goes, it's like he felt himself. He goes, because I feel like it's an insult to those who are poor. Because I'm saying to you, I'm not going to help you. I'm just going to tell you that I'm going to try it for one day as well.
Yeah, but
have you been?
I think what they do, Muslims do raise money for charity.
No, but they do raise money. They do raise money. But there's many issues connected to it, because then afterwards a huge feast every day. But they do collect money. But saying that, not many other religions have gurdwaras, langar running 24/7 either. So Sikhs are involved with seva throughout that, not just one period like Ramadan or anything. It's 24/7 throughout the year seva.
The point I was trying to make was that although other religions do have these great parts to them as well and these principles, but with Sikhi we're lucky because it's boiled down to the three principles that you mentioned, and that we can concentrate and focus on those and not necessarily anything else which is dogmatic or the ritualistic issues.
I would say just a couple of we'll talk about Baba Puran Singh in a minute, right? Because I think he's a fantastic example of somebody who just, in Amritsar, he could see there was a bad problem. He just picked up the lepers, he picked up all the people, and he just helped them. And that's a fantastic, way to think. Baba Puran Singh, but there are religions, right, that sometimes in exchange for giving charity will expect you to convert. Now, one of the great things about Sikh is that we don't have missionary work. We don't do conversions. It's up to you if you want to be a Sikh, But that's almost like holding food to ransom, isn't it?
It's funny actually, because it's a funny phrase that my brother comes up with. He says that they went to Africa and they gave him Christianity and took the gold or the diamonds or something. But that's
yeah. But we saw that in Haiti. Classic examples in the orphanage that we worked in, and myself spent months in. After the earthquake, missionaries were sent from different churches in America, Christian churches, and they were actually taking kids out. It's like became a rush.
It's just to make sure that we get this point right, that it's not all Christian churches that do this.
No. Just these, the ones that
there are fundamentalists in there are right wingers in all kinds.
Of course there are, but what they were doing, these missionaries, I didn't name particular churches. There were churches from America, certain areas that sent these guys, and they were caught as well on the border trying to slip the kids out.
It was in the papers.
Yeah, it was in the papers and news.
Right.
And they only got away because they were American, and America had a huge influence after the earthquake. It's still do in Haiti because we're displaced. If it was anybody else, they probably spent 10 years in jail. And what we also saw, we had a few orphanages a couple of orphanages saying, make us Sikhs, because they saw that we were giving unconditional aid. And they were really impressed. I said, look, how can we make you Sikhs? We can't make Sikhs in Punjab Sikhs. We haven't got time to make other people Sikhs.
Your answer was you don't have to be a Sikh
exactly.
to get
we
that
don't
aid.
do that. I said, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
But interesting point was others were. And they still are affiliated. Some of the orphanages became affiliated that if you affiliate with us, certain place in America, the church, we will continue to aid you. And then when you grow up, these kids will come to future priests and missionaries within Haiti,
right,
and spread that church in Haiti. So it's
well, it's a little bit disturbing. I think it happens in Punjab as well, isn't it?
It happens in Punjab. It's called Babaism.
Yeah.
So straightforward.
You know about the story of Puran Singh, don't you?
Of course.
The incredible sacrifice.
I think one of the greatest humanitarians. I think not just in India but throughout Asia. If not
the
world.
Bingawara, I have to tell you, I met some guys who do the Bingawara collection. They do Gutka as well, and I met them last night. Baljit and Amarjit, really brilliant guys. They do a bike ride as well. And they've been raising money. I had a target, I think, of about £10,000 to get together. So if you know about the Gutka groups that are going on in Ilford and in, I think in Hamza Gurdwara as well, feel free to contribute to them because our money's going to a really good cause. But they've done all kinds of things. They've done like climbing 3 mountains in a series of just 2-3 days. They've done a lot of good work, and I think that's the other great thing about it is that even in our bike ride, when we do the bike ride, a lot of people do a lot of things like you had the motorbikers who went from London to Scotland. But there's 100 motorbikes going all the way up there. And
European coming up soon.
Is that? Or are you going to?
The European tour is coming up of looking at late July. Will be more information. We'll do a special show on that with you.
Okay.
Next month. It's called Khalsa Bikers. Okay. And they're chosen to help Khalsa by doing bike rides in the UK.
You've got some kind of world record or something, jumping skydiving.
Tell about the world then.
Skydive, yes.
Yeah? Have you done the skydive?
I didn't do that, no.
Oh, okay.
I'm scared of heights.
The most skydives in one day last year, and raised I think about 131 people. Right. We beat the world record by 2. So if you look at Guinness Book of World Records, and they haven't put in the book yet, but it should be on there, like Khalsa. Thanks to the Sangat, thanks to the participant, thanks to the people who fundraise. And this year, we're looking at doing it in July again, but this time 200 we're hoping. So if you're interested and you're adventurous and you want to get on with it and do something different.
Get a bit of training in.
Yeah, and help Khalsa. But also Snowdon's coming up on 8th of April, which we talked about. So if people go on Khalsa website, www.khalsa.org, you'll see on the post of a Snowdon. And I would request youngsters or anybody listening now to print the poster out, stick it in your Gurdwara notice board, and book coaches from your areas. Come to Snowdon. You went last year. Can you tell a bit about the atmosphere?
Last year we had 400 people in Snowdon, and it was amazing. And even the locals, it was great Prachar as well, because everyone's a friendly bunch. And it was absolutely amazing. We didn't think that many people would turn out. But it
That's
shows
a
that
lot, that's a
that
lot.
people have got that that passion to do something
Yeah,
good.
they want to do something from their heart, and then that's what I think also about youth connection as well. Let me. I'm going to ask if you are interested in making a phone call to join the show. Please do that. I think the phone number's on display. We'd be happy to take your calls, specifically around this question around selfless service and Sikhi, which is more about charities. Are you doing charity work? Are you involved in some activities? You want to share that with us? Give us a call. Also, I wanted to ask this question. There's a lot of charity work, like I said before, that gets done. But will we ever get to a time? Will we ever get to a time where there'll be no poverty? I write about it a lot, where I think that we spend so much time saying, "Oh, look, this part of the world is so rich, and this part of the world is so poor." Yet the economists of the world, I don't think people see it as an opportunity. I don't think they see that harmonization. This is kind of my pet thing. My family at home say I constantly talk about this, but why can there not be projects in other countries to make them strong and self-sufficient? Interestingly, the Chinese have done it in Africa, and that's not necessarily a good thing because they may have other intents. And last night I was watching the news and I saw the amount of it was pretty bad. The kind of when you have harvesting of cotton, you have a lot of burning of the cotton that has to be boiled, and it creates a lot of dust. And these little kids, we know how old they are. Maybe they're about 8 or 10 years old, and basically, they will get some kind of disease, unfortunately, because no one's monitoring it. Yet the big companies over here are quite happy to fund the mills, which have got clean conditions. But the people that are out there, the little kids who are picking the cotton with all the scratches on their arms, then they're in the mill itself, which is the basic place where they boil it, are seeing all the dust come up. It's a disgusting situation, So basically, we'll take your calls on what you think about that. But we're going to get a call coming in right now. Is that right? Yeah, we've got a call coming through. So while we connect to that one, what do you think? Do you think that we'll ever get to a situation where poverty will be completely... a few years ago there was something called Make Poverty History, which I thought was good, yeah.
I mean, possibility is there, but the will has to be there, right? And without saying too much about it, all I say is just follow the Khalsa principle. Not the Khalsa, what we practice today, but the actual Khalsa principle, right? Where as long as everyone gets a square meal, is basically, that's what the whole point of langar and meal, place to stay, etc. Whatever extra you earn is yours, a part of the capitalism. So it's capitalism with social conscience.
Right. Is that what Mr. Cameron is talking about at the moment? I don't know.
It's surprising. Believe me or not, from my understanding, I could be wrong in this, but from my understanding, the big idea thing, big society thing came from Birmingham. Okay. From the Gurdwara.
Right. Very, very interesting.
Yes.
Let me stop you there for a second.
Sure.
It's always difficult to take calls, and then especially when you're in mid-flow. But let me take the call that comes through now. Then we'll come back straight to you as well,
Sure.
because it's a very good point about where the idea came from for the big society, whether it's good or bad, or it's going to work, or gets people to think. Thank you for joining us on the call. Tell us your view. Okay. Got a connection. Hello? Okay. We'll wait for the other call to come through then. That's okay. You were saying to us, you think the program came from Birmingham, you think?
That's what I understand it to be, right? So as I said, I'm not authority on that, and I can't swear to it. And what I understand is he, through other people and all that, came to know about the stuff they're doing for the kids and all that. And basically what happened is, it's a hearsay, what I heard, is that he went to a school nearby. And that's the school through which the children from the Soho Road Gurdwara sit their Punjabi exams, when they do their GCSE, A-levels, etc., right? Yeah. And similarly, that school sends their children who want to learn Punjabi to the school to learn that. And the story goes, right, as I said, we may be glorifying it or whatever. Right. The story goes that originally when that teacher came over to the Gurdwara and said, okay, where do you teach your children? And it was in the Langar Khana and all that stuff, right? And then they say, okay, fine. Who are your teachers? like, what qualifications do none of them are qualified as far, I mean, according to the Western or the university type or the the school type sort of thing. But and he says, fine, where are your teaching aids, etc.? Nothing. I mean, it's a piece of paper and all that. So it was very basic. And he says, what's that extra which is returning this high rate of success? And it was that the passion of the people teaching, right, and the passion of the children learning, that was the difference. So apparently, as I say, the story goes that that's where this idea. Wow. I mean, they said, look, I mean, these guys they're not asking anyone for any help financially. The Gurdwara supporting that, right? They're taking the children and doing all that teaching to them, right, and they are achieving very good results, and their GCSEs or A levels, whatever. They're sitting
good that they believe in it. That's good.
And they believe in it, and so. I mean, I think we need to ask Mr. Cameron where actually he got it from.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
But as I said, that's the way the story goes, and it may grow into a folklore one day. But
you never know. It might be that he went to Soho Road Gurdwara and he got the idea from there.
I think he's been there as well. I mean, I'm not sure, but he definitely went to the school next door to it, or close to, through which all the children are doing their.
Let's take this call that's come through now. We'll try again, and if we did lose you last time, we apologise. But Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Thanks very much for joining us on the call. Can you hear us okay?
Hello.
Hello. Hi. We have contact. Thanks for joining us on the programme. What's your view?
From Halifax.
Great.
I just want to say well done to Pai Ravi Singh Ji and his Sati, and they're doing a great job. And as I put on Facebook myself, that once I retire in December, I'll be willing to join him somewhere.
We look forward to it. I've got your comment. I got your comments, and it's amazing that Paisal is going to retire soon.
Okay.
And he says that he wants to volunteer his time in Punjab or anywhere else with Khalsa Aid. He's very inspired, and this is what we're looking for. Like by Rajinder Singh. Paisal, are you still on the phone?
I am, sir.
You're from Halifax yourself.
Yes.
What made you put your trust in us? I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about trust, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been following you for the last 3 years, but didn't have much time. But the thing is what inspires me is that you are a true soldier of Guru Gobind Singh and doing the work which is required by all of us.
Well, without the Sangat, I think there'll be no soldiers. We cannot exist without, Sangat like yourself. Because, in dark times when we're traveling abroad in, darkest areas of the world, and, we'd get disheartened, we get, all sorts of, butterflies, etc. But when we think there's Sangat like Paisal here and the other Sangat, it carries us on. We continue.
Paisal, let me ask you that question I was asking to Jaswinder earlier on. Do you think there'll ever be a time where, we can see the fact there is no poverty? What do we need to change economically for people to realise that they have an opportunity to harmonise the existence? Is the world just too selfish and they let people?
Well, the Panch Bikhadi Gariba, that 5 thieves are just taking us away from everything.
Right. There's the ego and all those jealousy things and all the other things that are in the way, aren't they?
It is people like Ravi Singh and other people who just shed everything and forget everything and just continue with their own given agenda by Guruji to carry on, and they succeed, and by that they help other people to survive as well.
I was thinking, isn't it a great foresight and a wonderful legacy that the Gurus have given us, that for Sikhi to really be part of that giving to others and helping other people. But thanks so much for the call.
Thank you. Thank you
really
very
appreciate it. Okay, let's move on to that other topic that we were going to talk about, which is really, we were talking earlier on, and we just did this before when we were in the room outside. Specifically, in Punjab, there have been a lot of problems, right? Tell us a typical problem that actually is happening out there, and like a little bit about the latest case that's happening. Because sometimes this case is complicated because it can be poverty, but it can also be people are in a difficult situation because the political circumstances have put them in a really bad way. Like in the example you were talking about,
most of the viewers and yourself know that we're concentrating on Punjab quite a lot in the last year or 2 years. Now we're talking about the word NGO earlier on, means non-governmental organization.
Yeah.
And Khalsa Aid is truly a non-government organization because we don't take grants from the UN, we don't affiliate with any government, because the people, youngsters or the Sikhs that were murdered after 1984, killed and massacred, are called terrorists by the Indian government. They weren't even terrorists, most of them are just people who just, happened to be a certain age group, abducted to stop a movement because they couldn't stop it. And yesterday, we got a list of 15 new families. I'm going to share just for a moment one story, or 1.5 stories actually.
Can I stop you there for a second? I know it's difficult when we've got calls coming in.
Sure.
At this point, we'll talk about that for a minute. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ ਜੀ। ਅਸੀਂ ਡਰਬੀ ਤੋਂ ਪ੍ਰੀਤਮ ਸਿੰਘ ਬੋਲ ਰਹੇ ਹਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਜੀ।
ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ।
ਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਪਤਾ ਕਰਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਜਦੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪਾਣੀ ਜਿਵੇਂ ਕਿ ਨਲਕਾ ਲਾਉਂਦੇ ਆ ਜਾਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾਂ ਸਾਊਥ ਅਫਰੀਕਾ ਵਿੱਚ ਕਿਤੇ ਉਹਦਾ ਕਾਸਟ ਕੀ ਹੈਗਾ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ।
ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ। ਹਾਂਜੀ,
ਜਿਹੜਾ ਹੇਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਲਾਉਣਾ, ਪਰ ਉੱਥੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੱਧ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਧ 500 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਦਾ ਛੋਟਾ ਨਲਕਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਇੱਕ orphanage ਵਿੱਚ 40 ਜਾਂ 50 ਬੱਚੇ ਉਹ ਲੱਗ ਸਕਦਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਕਈ ਵਾਰੀ ਉੱਥੇ ਇੰਨਾ ਪਾਣੀ ਡੂੰਘਾ ਨਹੀਂ, ਪਾਣੀ ਉੱਪਰ 30 ਫੁੱਟ ਤੇ 40 ਫੁੱਟ ਤੇ ਪਾਣੀ ਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਹਾਂਜੀ, ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਹੁਣ ਕੇਨੀਆ ਤੇ ਲਾਉਣਾ, ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ ਕੇਨੀਆ ਦੀ ਗੱਲ ਆਉਂਦੀ ਆ, ਉੱਥੇ ਸਖਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਮੀਨ, ਮਸ਼ੀਨਰੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ, ਦੂਰ ਬਹੁਤ ਆ ਲੋਜਿਸਟਿਕਲੀ। ਉੱਥੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਨਲਕਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ, ਨਾਲ ਵੱਡਾ ਨਲਕਾ ਲੱਗਦਾ, ਨਾਲ ਮੋਟਰ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਉਹਦਾ 10 ਤੋਂ 15,000 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਦਾ ਖਰਚਾ ਆ ਸਕਦਾ। ਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆ, ਜੇ ਗੱਲ ਹੁਣ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਕਿਸੇ ਨੇ ਸਿੰਘ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੇ ਸਾਨੂੰ ਦਿੱਤੇ 3,000 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਨਲਕੇ ਦੇ, ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹੁਣ ਸਿੱਖਲੀ ਘਰ ਸਿੱਖਿਆ, ਬੰਜਾਰਾ ਸਿੱਖ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ, ਅਸੀਂ ਉੱਥੇ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਨਾ ਉਹ ਕੰਮ। ਉੱਥੇ 1 ਲੱਖ ਰੁਪਈਏ ਦਾ 1200 ਲੱਖ ਕੇ 1500 ਪਾਉਂਡ ਤੱਕ ਕਹਿ ਲਓ, ਬਹੁਤ ਸੋਹਣਾ ਤਕੜਾ ਨਲਕਾ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਉਹ ਕੱਲੇ ਏਰੀਆ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਦਾ, ਪਰ ਅਫਰੀਕਾ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਮਹਿੰਗਾ, ਹੇਟੀ ਸਾਡੇ ਤੋਂ ਸਸਤਾ, ਤੇ ਇੱਧਰ ਮੱਧ ਪ੍ਰਦੇਸ਼ ਵੱਲ, ਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਹਰ ਏਰੀਆ 'ਚ ਡਿਪੈਂਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਕਿੱਥੇ ਕੀ ਕੀਮਤ ਕੀ ਆ।
ਆਪਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਹੈ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੀ ਇੰਨੀ ਹਿੰਮਤ ਕੀਤੀ ਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਤੱਕ ਇਹ ਮੈਸੇਜ ਦਾ ਵੀ ਪਹੁੰਚਾਇਆ ਸੀਗਾ। Okay,
we won't take any more calls for the moment. I mean, if you feel free to call through, we have to hang, just stay on the line until we actually bring you into the conversation. We appreciate your patience on that. Now, the story you were telling us...
I just want to make it very brief.
Yeah.
The story, as we are progressing in Punjab, people get to know Khalsa is working in Punjab, supporting the families affected by the violence after 1984, mostly state-sponsored. We're approaching those families at village level. It's the hardest work we've ever done, actually networking with locals, going into villages. And the worst part is when you go to a Shaheed Parivar and you say to them, you come to help, most of the time they just look at you, no emotion, no joy. Not because they're not happy to see you, because they've been betrayed time and time again. People have come, taken interviews, taken photographs. This one particular case is, there's all sorts of cases, heartbreaking. One particular case that the Singh Saab, who went there a few years ago, done a big study, a human rights organization, and they gave us a list of 15 names. He explained to me there's a gentleman, Singh Saab, taken away, abducted in the Gurdaspur area, never returned, obviously killed off at the time in early 90s. Now, he had a little daughter. The girl's mother left her. She couldn't handle it, just maybe stress or whatever. And the little girl, what the family done, the uncle and the maternal grandmother, grandfather, they actually shipped her back to her nanke, to her mum's pind, so that she doesn't claim anything on the land.
That's pretty shocking.
So we're working on, with this Singh Saab and ourselves now, his hardest task is asking the family, where is that girl? We want to find that girl to help her. So she's probably 18 or 19 now.
Sometimes the help that people do is even more complicated than just actually...
It is.
I'm not saying that, fitting a water pump is easy. That's quite hard. I'm talking about the fact that sometimes it's even deeper because of the ripple effect that, political things actually leave behind. Let's take a call that's come through. I know you're waiting. Waiguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waiguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Hi, Khalsa, Waiguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thanks for joining us.
Hi, thanks. First of all, I would like to congratulate Faisal for the Sikh Aid and all the great work you guys are doing. I'm really appreciating that. I mean, it's really inspiring to see the show. I never try to miss this.
Oh, well, thank you.
And
because of Ravi, I think.
Yeah. So, just one question I have for Faisal, what inspired him to, open a Sikh Aid charity like that, and which is totally, not getting any economical aid from anywhere. So, what inspired him basically? I know he has said about his ardas, and that's what. But what I mean to say in terms of practical, has he seen anything any circumstances or anything? What basically in that? What's the spirit, the reason for that? Of course, the Guru Sahib told us about that, and that's the main reason. But there must be. There may be. Yeah.
There are many reasons, but the main reasons. I remember growing up, I came to this country in 1981, I was almost 12 years old, and every time there's a disaster, Sikhs gave. For years, Sikhs gave, but when you look at their annual reports or Oxfam, Red Cross or whatever they were, they never mention the Sikhs. They'll go and use the money that we gave, put their own stamp on. And then 1984 happened, and that affected us deeply, I think most of us. And I know my friends in the early 90s traveling in Europe, you hear us name Singh, they were on the terrorist list, banned them, etc. We had so much propaganda against us. Nothing good was said about the Sikhs. So we could do two things. We could scream and shout, or we could do something to launch something in the world. Why we called it Khalsa Aid? We could have called it Sikh Aid, we could have called it Punjab British Sikh. We called it Khalsa Aid because there's a bigger meaning to the Khalsa. And that word, I said it again and again, the concept of the Khalsa hurts the enemy they're more afraid of than actually, anything else. If a one true Khalsa stood up, Sawa Lakh se ek larang, that is the fear. That's why the Amritdhari Singhs and Singhnis became targets after 1984, and it was openly said by the government, wasn't it? You can
army circular,
that these are dangerous terrorists, etc., etc. So we want to tell the world, Sikh Khalsa Aid is, we are humanitarians.
That used to be the thing that really annoyed me at the time in 84. When you read the press, it was like Sikh terrorist. And that the word Sikh terrorist is a contradiction in terms, because we're not that. We're not that. The fundamental thing that was happening at the time was it was talking about water rights, it was talking about manufacturing, it was talking about, the discussions that were happening in 1947. All of that was completely whitewashed by confusing the term.
No, but they brought the word in. They brought the very famous word in, separatism. When you talk about your rights, or they're separatists, but then somebody down south can ask for rights, they're not separatists. When Sikhs talk about their issues, water, and Anandpur resolution, the whole lot, they're separatists. Nobody was a separatist.
Yeah, and I think that the point you were making about the fact that, and I saw this, and again, I kind of feel like I'm repeating myself sometimes, that when I went to the Golden Temple exhibition, which was really incredible last year, 22,000 people, I think, went to see it in central London at SOAS, the School of Oriental and African Studies, at a fantastic exhibition that they ran there. And I remember on one of the tours organised by City Sikhs, we had the creator showing us around, and there was some presentation at the end. Garuka Singh came from the SikhNet organisation as well, and this girl put her hand up, and I always remember she said that, should we return to the humanitarian? Well, I don't think we ever left it. We never left it. We just it was never mentioned. But because it's in the heart of a Sikh to be humanitarian, it's in our psyche to be. I truly believe that. Now, if you've got organisations like Khalsa Aid or Sikh Aid or SWAT or whoever they are that are out there that are doing it, it's just a vehicle to do that. Now, last week when we had Gurpreet on from Shepherd's Bush Gurdwara, and they do a lot of work in the community as well, and he made a couple of very interesting points. He said sometimes a Gurdwara can be a incubator or a facilitator, and I think, wouldn't it be really good and imaginative to not be critical of the place of the Gurdwara, but to say, isn't it fantastic the Gurdwara building stands? It shows the love of the people, but also the fact that the committee members can work together with charities to do fantastic work, which is what Sikhs are supposed to do. Whether it be find something local or whatever. Okay, Right, well, thanks very much for the call. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for that. I think we've got another call coming, actually. Yeah, it was a very interesting call, actually. Very and very good to find out what was inspiring you.
Yeah, but some people don't agree, you see. They say, oh, you talk too much, sort of thing. So, but that's
we got a couple of minutes left. I don't know if we got a call coming in. Maybe we can take a call for about 30 seconds or so. Is there a call in there? Okay, no other calls?
Can I just finish one line of that conversation? I have no idea why we, the Sikhs, right, we sing praises of the Gurus and everything, we're so brave, we're wonderful with this. But when it comes to human rights, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want to tell the children. We're like, leave it. You don't talk about this. It's not something healthy. Your own brothers are getting tortured, massacred. You don't even recognize who you are. And yet, parents won't talk about it. Why are we so shy to talk about it? We do save around the world. We turn to Punjab. We're fully committed to Punjab. But many people, when we say to people, sponsor a family affected by the 84, lost a son, now the Bajurgs are on their own, the old couple, the parents, £40 a month. People are coming forward, but other people are saying, oh, well, I don't support political, I'm not political. How can you be a Sikh and not be political? It's miri piri.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like a Sikh terrorist, that doesn't go.
It doesn't go together, yeah. Well, I think we're coming to the end of the show, and I think there's a lot of really interesting points that have come up, with regards to all the different charities that are doing fantastic work out there. We also have discussed how really it's not necessarily just a Sikh that's passionate, it's individuals, it's kind of humans that have really got that, sense of wanting to help other people. And the fact that there are lots of great Sikh charities out there like Khalsa Aid and SWAT and all the other groups that are doing fantastic work. Saka, there's a lot of them, like Sikh Coalition does a lot of good work over in the US as well, fighting for the cause of making sure that there's equality
there is
Sikhs.
all these organisations out there, and all the causes out there. There's really no excuse for people not to do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're doing something in your local community, even if it's like knocking on your next door neighbour and obviously if it's safe and everything, and knocking on the next door neighbour and seeing if they're okay, and unfortunately what happens sometimes is political situations and families stop people from talking to each other, and then we forget we're only on this earth for a very short period, and yet we're fighting amongst ourselves and we're fighting amongst the neighbour next door, which I think is a bit of a terrible situation, really.
Can I just mention one thing? I think one thing that we're doing more with Baljeet Singh went to on the Libyan-Tunisian border is now we're not shy about flying the Nishan-Sav. Right. Before we were held back a little bit. The last 2 years, wherever in Haiti, we went to Libyan border. If there's a UN flag or other flags flying, we say, hey, we're helping, and Nishan-Sav is our flag. Not a Khalsa Aid flag, but Nishan-Sav. Yeah. And we fly it, and it's amazing that these people, they adore it. Now we got more commitment coming to North Africa in the same area because they said we love the Sikhs. They've never seen Sikhs before there, right. And now they want us to do water pumps in the rural areas of the, on the Libyan, Tunisian, Morocco, Algeria side. And we proudly, we have Punjabi Seva written on the back. We say who we are, and we fly the flag. We're not shy anymore flying the flag. We're proud of it. Sangha gives us the money, and we spend it straight away on wherever's needed, but we want to fly the flag as well. So when it's a strange when somebody comes along and they see a Sikh flag. So you're the United Nations officer, SAS Army officer. Right, yeah. He said, "Hey man, I love the Sikhs. I've seen that's your flag. Yeah, fly it higher." Yeah, it's amazing. Nice. Nice. It gives us pride. We must not be apologetic. Why are we so apologetic?
I don't know about apologetic. I think maybe there might be different other issues that are abound there. What I would say is, just as a close to the show, I'd like to thank very much everyone who's come on. Ravi, really good. Jaswinder, Baljeet, so nice of you to come on the show and spend some time with us and give us an insight into what you guys are doing, what you've done in Kenya. Really interesting. Your inspiration for doing a Khalsa Aid, really interesting. The fact that you find time at the end of the day when you come back from your government job and you've got all those other things that are on your mind, and phoning him in the middle of the night saying, "Hey, organise my ticket to fly back." Yeah, logistically. I think also we did discuss a few other subjects, like, for example, will there ever be a time when there will be no poverty in the world? Well, it's really up to us to help drive that agenda forward, making poverty history. Let's not forget it as just a phrase. Let's exercise it in our daily lives. Also, I think it's great for youth to get involved, to get that connection, to get that understanding. Phone up your Gurdwara committee and say, hey, what are you doing? What can we do together? Don't be critical, be contributory. to helping them out. You know, if you want them to show leadership by yourself. You know, every good Sikh is a good leader. You know, and so you know, it's not in our it should not be in our agenda to be critical. It should be in our agenda to help people and ensure that in the future we have a great and fairer and equal society for everyone. And that was really interesting, by the way, the point that you made about, you know, the fact that maybe the big picture thing, you know, the David Cameron issue about the big society, maybe it came from Soho Road. And if it did, good stuff. And we mentioned the wonderful work of Puran Singh over in Amritsar for Pingawara, and all the groups that are doing fantastic work for Pingawara as well, for example, Amrajit and also Baljit and all his team out there as well. So lots of great things that people do, and ultimately you are the people that can make the change. You are the people that are the Sikhs out there, and even with your people that are non-Sikhs, you don't have to be that. You just have to have a great humanitarian heart, a great passion to do great things for great people. Because ultimately, if you do good things, in Sikhi we say, if you do Bhat and everything else, you will merge with Vaheguru. And as I said right at the beginning of the program, what a fantastic thing that the Gurus have given us. They've given us that, you know, foresight. They had that foresight to know that, you know, it would be great if you did things for charity, if you shared with your community, you know, Van Kashoko, which is, you know, share your wealth of your knowledge, your wealth of all the energy that you have, your wealth in terms of material, the fact that you have that ideology to make the world a better place. So until next time, we'll see you soon. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.